Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Audit Committee meeting. We have two items to go through on the agenda, but just before that, and actually this is perfect timing because now I see the whole team is here, or at least a significant chunk of the team is here, have an opportunity to acknowledge our accounting division on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association. And earlier this month, I received a letter and a certificate or an award to present to the group of you from the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for attaining the Canadian Award for Financial Reporting Achievement. And the award is for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2015, and recognizes excellence in governmental accounting and financial reporting and represents a significant accomplishment by municipal government and its management. As we all know, the accounting industry has a set of standards called the GAP as the basic standards. But what this award does is recognize those who have gone above and beyond to produce quality and transparent reports. And it reads, the annual financial report has been judged by an impartial Canadian Review Committee to meet the high standards of the program, including demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure designed to clearly communicate the municipality's financial story and to motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. So on behalf of all of us on Council, it gives me a great pleasure to present this to the four of you. And up there we have Brenda Johnson, Roger Lebrun, Sherry Brisbane, and Peggy Hamilton. So congratulations.
Squeezing tight.
Oh, no, I'll come on this side so we're like,
sure.
You know, not like girl, boy, boy.
1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Now we'll watch for Dan to tweet it. Congrats. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks.
Congrats. You get like 5-minute speech. You want to thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Barry. I will take the opportunity. This team does do an excellent job with accounting standards, and I want to thank them for their efforts in providing the quality statements that you receive each year. It is their hard work that goes into making this, and they do take the utmost of care and highest standards in the production of the financial statements. So I do want to thank the team. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, and now we'll move on then to item number 1 on the agenda, which is the 2016 year in review, and we'll turn it over to Karina.
All right, so as you recall, this report is one that I do every year at this time, and it just provides a bit of a snapshot looking backwards at the accomplishments that we had last year in service reviews. It takes a look at both the internal audit work and the larger integrated service review work plan and compares what we actually accomplished to what we had said we were going to do. So this first slide here is just the internal audit work plan that you had approved. Of the items that are listed here, 75% of them were completed as planned. And we had one review as well that we had anticipated would go into this year, and the revenue review is still in progress and on track as we had anticipated. The two that did not get completed as planned, the first one was the store's tool crib physical inventory. We had scheduled this one to be started in December. It's a fairly small scope of a review. However, when we got into it, we realized that we needed some IT support to pull some reports that we needed. So that one was deferred until January. So you will see that one. It's actually underway right now, and you'll see that one coming back in June. And then the last one is the hiring transparency audit. This was a follow-up review that we've had on the work plan for a while now. Why it's being deferred is that we're waiting for the hiring at Kitchener training to be rolled out to management staff. and allow them some time to put into action what they've learned in that training. So the training will be happening this quarter, I believe. So probably, hopefully next year in 2018, we can put it back on the work plan and follow up to see if anything has improved in that manner. So with regards to the other service reviews that were done within the departments without my assistance, there were 3 risk assessments in the INS department that were cancelled just due to some vacancies in some key positions within that department and some other priorities that they had. Now, since that time, in the fall, you recall, we did the refreshed prioritization of all the service reviews. These 3 were no longer a priority for us, so that's why they have been cancelled altogether for now. It's not to say that we can't come back and do them at another time, but they're not a priority for this year. There were 3 reviews that were completed as planned, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about those today. The IT risk assessment and 2 reviews in the HR division. And then there were 2 reviews that were delayed that we've transferred over to the 2017 work plan, and those are the risk assessment of Kitchener Utilities and the Phase 3 recruitment review within HR, which focuses in on co-ops and internships. So now I'll take you through the 3 that were completed as planned. Keep in mind that I did not participate in these reviews, so I'm just giving you a high-level summary of what I know. Hopefully, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them, but I may need to refer to staff after the fact. So the first one was the IT risk assessment, and this was a continuation of one that was started in 2015. Each section within the IT division underwent a risk assessment to help proactively identify the risks and rate the likelihood and impact of each one. There were 2 sections within IT that had to be deferred to 2016 just due to some other priorities, and those were the database admin and the development sections. So the objectives really were just to go through that risk assessment for these 2 sections with an added objective of, while they were doing that, to look for any ideas or solutions or priority areas that could flow into the Digital Kitchener strategy. So the outcomes, as expected, are the 2 section risk assessments being completed. The IT division then combined all of the sections into one divisional risk assessment, which is going to be used as a management tool going forward to help them proactively mitigate the risks. Now, we'll just point out here that this is different than the cybersecurity review that we have on the work plan for this year. Cybersecurity is a very focused risk assessment and gap analysis, whereas these risk assessments were more broad-based and covered a number of risk areas. And as expected, the input from this exercise was also used to inform the Digital Kitchener strategy. The next review was the evaluation of the QP 791 non-union and management job evaluation process with 3 main goals. One was to ensure that we are in compliance with the Pay Equity Act, to review our policies and procedures to make sure that they are relevant and current, and then just to ensure that our customers have the best positive experience that they can. And by customers, we mean the staff or management that are going through the job evaluation process. So the methodology that the team used was first a broad-based stakeholder consultation. They interviewed a cross-section of management and staff who had recently gone through the job evaluation process, as well as members of the job evaluation committee and senior management. They also did a deep review of the system itself and the supporting policies and procedures. So there were 5 main categories of recommendations that came out of this review. The first was to better define the ownership of the job description writing process. In the past, this had resided with HR to drive the process. It has now switched to have the onus on the employee and the manager to really drive it forward and get it through, with, of course, support from HR. There were recommendations around some new tools to support management employees in doing the actual job description writing. And along with that, updating the documentation and providing some examples and context for people to make it easier to go through this process. And then there was a communication plan and training around that continued communication, so both in terms of the new tools and support that are available, as well as ongoing communication throughout each job evaluation process to keep everyone in the loop at the appropriate times. And the third and final review that was done, also in the HR areas, was related to human rights. And this was just to review and update policies, training, and procedures. And this was based on new changes to legislation in this regard. So the team reviewed our current training needs and procedures, benchmarked against other organizations, got some legal expertise related to the policy itself to make sure that we are in compliance with the new legislation, and then some process mapping to ensure that the complaints process is as efficient and as effective as possible. So the recommendations in this review included some mandatory training, so in-class training for all management staff and online training for all staff. Along with that are some updated policies that are now in compliance with the legislation. And then in addition to the initial training, some optional skill building around conflict resolution and respect in the workplace conversations to be taken as required by management. So that's it for this summary of last year. Are there any questions?
Sorry, any questions? If not, there doesn't look to be.
All right. All right, so the next is the first quarter audit status report. So today I'm going to tell you about two reviews. First of all, the petty cash compliance audit, and then a status report on the Integrated Planning Center of Excellence. Also in progress at this time are the cybersecurity risk assessment and gap analysis that I mentioned. Revenue continues to be ongoing, a comprehensive audit of that. The physical inventory of our store's tool crib, and then cost-benefit analysis of our aggregates. So petty cash, as you know, is one way to reimburse staff for purchases that they've made on behalf of the corporation, as long as they are under $100. My past audit practice has been to go to each of our locations that has a petty cash float and count the cash as well as the receipts and ensure that it totals the float balance. What I've found in the past is very minimal variances, the process is in control, very low dollars and low risk. So what I've done is change the process up a little bit this time and decided to audit the actual vouchers that people submit with their receipts to ensure that they're in compliance with our policies. So the objective of this review was to look at 2016 petty cash vouchers for compliance with policy. And what I did was took a random sample of 50% of our petty cash custodians. So our petty cash custodians are the folks that actually manage the floats, and they give out the cash when employees give them receipts. So of the 18 petty cash custodians that were drawn in the random sample, 12 of them actually submitted a reconciliation within 2016. So when their float balance gets down to a certain level, they will gather up all the receipts and prepare a reconciliation and submit it into accounting so that they can get their float replenished. So 12 individuals had submitted those reconciliations in 2016. So I looked at one reconciliation for each of those people. And within that, there were 129 individual vouchers and receipts that were reviewed. And what I did was I tested them against the criteria about what was in our petty cash policy currently. So first of all, when you submit a petty cash voucher, there are 3 people that need to sign it. First is the employee's supervisor to authorize the expense as a valid business expense. Second is the person giving out the money to say that they've given it out. And the third is the person receiving the cash, just to say that they've received it. They also need to include on the voucher the business reason for the expense and attach their original receipts. There are also several prohibited items that they should not be claiming for, and those include alcohol, tobacco, personal items, and they're not to pay any vendors directly. So of those 129 vouchers that I looked at, I would say generally we are in compliance, which is good. I did find 2 isolated instances of non-compliance with the prohibited items, and I didn't actually find them. Accounting had found them and noted them on the files, so that's good that we've got a first level of controls in place that are catching these things. The first was payment to a vendor directly, And the second was a personal item that was purchased. The employee had actually flagged it on the receipt as being a personal item. They had just forgotten to deduct it from the total. It was $1.29. I'm not going to worry about that small amount. I did find, though, multiple issues with the signatures, so I'm not sure whether it's just an education thing where people aren't quite sure how to fill out the voucher or who's supposed to be signing it. What I did find, though, was that each reconciliation, like the cover sheet with all the receipts behind it, was being signed by the appropriate manager. So that is really the control that we care about. They're saying that, yes, they agree with all of the purchases that are on this reconciliation. And so that really led me to the conclusion that our policy is a little bit outdated and maybe overly restrictive. First of all, there's no reason why we can't pay vendors with cash if needed on an emergency basis, as long as it's under $100. It requires the same amount of controls. The manager still needs to sign off on it. The receipt needs to be attached, and they need to sign that they received the cash. It's not something that we would advertise to say we want to do this, but there's certainly no reason why it can't be done. And then the signature requirements. For any petty cash custodian where the float is for the sole use of their division, really the only signature that's required from the management perspective is on the overall reconciliation. They don't need to also sign every single voucher. That's just a lot of extra work. And really the only other person that needs to sign the voucher is the employee saying that they received the cash. So the recommendations for this review are, first of all, to update the petty cash policy and procedure to remove any reference to not paying vendors and to clarify the requirement around the signatures on the vouchers. And then to add this into the employee expense training that accounting is currently developing that will be rolled out to staff later this year. Are there any questions on this review?
Councillor Onetsky.
Yeah, just a little clarification on the vendor. If one of the employees went to do this, you're not allowed to do it, but now you're saying they will be permitted to do it?
Yes, it's not something we're going to advertise, but it's certainly for the rare occasions that it does happen. I'm not going to note it as a non-compliance.
So who is the vendor that, can you give us an example? Because if they got to go to a store, isn't the store a vendor? Or is that, a vendor means something else? I don't know.
It is considered a vendor, but I would say the ones that would be where we would be giving them cash out of a petty cash float would be perhaps at the market where they're buying something from one of the market vendors for use in a program or a class where they've used cash from there. We've seen it in those situations typically.
Okay. And when you talk about staff having a float that needs to get replenished every so often, depending how quickly you go through all the receipts, etc., how big of a float do you provide for them?
It depends on the area and what type, like the frequency of receipts that are coming through. So, for example, an area like the market that has a lot of expenses, their float is sitting at $2,000. Most of them are sitting more around the $200 to $300 level.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what are the total petty cash floats for the entire city?
The total of the dollar?
The dollar value total.
I don't know offhand, but based on the number that we have, I would say probably in the range of maybe $5,000 total, $5,000 to $6,000.
For the whole city?
Petty cash floats, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I guess that takes us through the agenda.
Oh, we need one more review within the status
Oh,
report.
okay, sorry. Yes.
All right, so the next one is the Integrated Planning Center of Excellence status update. So just to refresh your memories of what the Integrated Planning Center of Excellence was, this was a group of staff that was created in 2011 for the specific purpose of putting together a number of programs of work, and they had a 3-year term that they would operate over. So my original audit was at the end of that 3-year term, just to say, did we accomplish what we set out to do? How are we going to move forward? How are we going to resource these programs in the future? And the recommendations of my review focused in on formalizing the integrated planning as a section or division within the city, and then resourcing or embedding the other programs throughout the rest of the corporation. So the objective of this review is simply to follow up and to hold staff accountable for implementing the recommendations. So it's just a checkpoint at a point in time, with the caveat that if I found anything where I felt that the recommendations weren't being implemented fast enough or whatnot, I could follow up and do a deeper dive. So in this particular case, there were 12 original recommendations. 10 of them are complete and 2 are in progress. Some of the benefits that have been realized so far from the implementation have included, first of all, the establishment of the strategic and business planning as a permanent part of the CAO's department. And as you've seen, the strategic plan and the annual business plans that are coming out, they've really come a long way with the product that they're producing in that section. We also have a refreshed performance management system that's been introduced. So we've got the peak training for the peak program for management staff and the refreshed Let's Talk program for frontline staff. We then have change management and project management, which we have been trying to embed within the corporation. So for for project management, a list of mentors was created that are individuals that have project management experience that would be willing to support and advise others. Some capacity courses have been created for project management and change management that individuals can take. And then there's also been a focus within our management training on change management as well. And then finally, the service coordination and improvement manager and business analyst positions within the INS department are now fully staffed to provide support to a number of these program areas as well. So the one recommendation that's still outstanding was the intent was to put project management templates on the intranet so that, again, we can embed it in our organization and people can go there as a resource. It had been delayed, simply waiting for the K-Hub intranet site to be up and running. So now that it is, they can go ahead and finish that one recommendation. So from my perspective, there are no further follow-ups required for this topic. Any questions?
Any questions? There don't appear to be any.
That was easy.
Yeah. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'll take the motion to adjourn. Councillor Galloway-Seelock, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.